This is the voice of Bold Business Radio, and I'm your host, Jessica Dewell of Red Direction. Today's show is called The Impact of Commitment. And I am going to be doing this one all on my own, which I'm really excited because you may or may not have noticed already, we have a variety of conversation styles on the voice of Bold Business Radio. It's going to be sometimes just me, sometimes me plus a co-host, and sometimes I will host a panel where the panel is going to have 2 minutes to answer a question, and then we talk about all the different answers to add context and develop an outcome. We may not always agree, and that's okay. And what does that mean then, and how does that tie into commitment and the impact of commitment? Well, I'm going to start with a quote from Peter Drucker. Unless commitment is made, there are only promises and hopes, but no plans. Now, I have to tell you, for me, the commitment is to action, and then a plan will emerge. And so Peter Drucker has gone about it a different way. He's talking about a plan to then take action and see what a project could bring. Both are very valid ways to go and approaches that we can take in business. So I want to start with the concept that commitment is a mindset. And even though there are mindsets for just about everything, it's the strength of the mindset that keeps us going. We experience positive feelings when we add value and actively contribute to something bigger than ourselves. We experience weariness and maybe even desperation when we're shown a path that goes against our personal beliefs. When is the right time to keep the boundary of commitment to ourselves and to the project? And where is the boundary in the first place? When do we question our understanding of commitment for ourselves and to others? We're going to dig into this more right after our opening.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Okay, so I wanted to start out with a purpose, and today's purpose is that we all have experience, and we all have different experiences, and it's in those unique experiences, how they all mix together, that give us our perspective on life and how we approach solving problems and what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are also. We learned lessons from our childhood, and we're probably still learning lessons now. And in both cases, the level of actual value of those experiences may vary. Whatever we learn to do to survive, to create, to support, to be seen, or not any of those things, directly relate to our definition of commitment. It impacts how we commit and what we see commitment being around us. So there are 3 facets of commitment that directly relate to business that I want to talk about for just a few minutes. The first is the definition of commitment, which we will dig into. Aesop's fable, The Crow and the Pitcher, which is actually a really cool problem-solving story that I'm going to read right here on this episode here. And the third piece is that commitment can be a character strength. And so how we define commitment impacts how we show up to a commitment being presented to us or a commitment that we have taken on, a responsibility of our own. So the first section, what's a commitment? You know, there are 3 definitions to commitment. The first is a promise to do something. It's what you do when it's doing what you said you would do. It's saying something and following through. It's holding up your word, keeping a promise. So that's a definition, the promise to do something. A second definition is about loyalty. When you stand for something and you believe in something, and when an outside force challenges that, you choose the something, what your belief is, over the outside force. It's a way that you and me may determine and define quality also. Things that catch our attention, things that are worth our while, things that we love because we've had great experiences, or things that we have last forever, we're loyal to those. The same goes with people. I know I'm describing stuff, but the same is true of people. When people do what they say they're going to do, we know we can believe in them, and we are more likely to believe in them back and be loyal to them. We give them our attention. We want to be around them. We choose to be around them. The same goes for a company. And the third definition is attitude. The attitude of fortitude and persistence and the concept of working hard. I know one of the things that comes up occasionally in conversation for me is people will start to tell me about their work ethic. People will start to tell me what they're looking for in the people that they're surrounding themselves with. It also comes up in families. Sometimes you may have heard, I know I have heard this, I didn't raise you like that. And it's kind of funny because you look at that in business, and sometimes we hear, and maybe you said it, I have probably said a variation of this to employees of mine over time as I have been gaining experience, and it's, I didn't hire you to do that. Same concept. The same concept. It's our definition of what it means to work hard, what it means to complete work, what actions are necessary, what we think about, what we expect of others around all the same concepts. It's our attitude about commitment. So when we think about commitment and resistance, sometimes there's a ginormous sense of resistance. Sometimes you can feel it in yourself or see it in yourself. Sometimes you see it and feel it in others. Physically, people may close down and change their actual posture. Another thing is that, you might just get this cold wall. All of a sudden, this wall came out of nowhere, and a very easygoing conversation stalls. In fact, stops, and it's frigid. The room just changes temperature. There's no more connection. So when resistance like these that are being described, and anything else on the scale along that might come up, we might say, see, and hear things like, that person doesn't care about what we're doing, or how did we get into this situation? It's outside of what I agreed to, or the scope of the project, or what I'm willing to do. Another one, that vendor, employee, person never meets their deadlines. Even though I know so-and-so has good intentions, nothing ever gets completed on time or budget, or done at all. Things like this start rising to the surface, and those are some good cues that it's time to look at commitment, and it's time to dig in and have some conversations around what's going on when things like this start to pop up. You're hearing it, you're seeing the embodiment of it, maybe even you're saying it yourself. So when we say we're committed to a thing or a person or a business, and somebody else also says they're committed to that same thing, that same person, and that same business, but somebody's not caring, it's outside of what we agreed to, they're not meeting, deadlines aren't being met, we have a really good feeling nothing's going to happen and it's going to grind to a halt. Well, then what do we do? Because both we, me, you, our side of the conversation and the other person's side of the conversation can be right. We might define commitment differently. Okay, so I want to read you this Aesop's fable. So we have this book, and I bought it because 200 Aesop's fables. These are rules to live by, wisdom to learn, and experiences that maybe we don't have to go through, but we can still learn from. And I'm enjoying them as much as reading them to my 5-year-old son, Carter. Okay, so I'm looking for the crow and the pitcher. I think it's like on page 114 or something like that. Is there a better way to look at this? Nope. All right. I'm pretty sure it's a 14. Maybe it's 414. We're going to look at a couple of 14 pages. And this is, when we're thinking about commitment, while I'm looking for this, one of the things that's really important to just sit and think about would be the question, what does commitment mean to me? Is it something that I do? Is it something that I know it when I see it? Is it something that I feel? And really, an even better way to say that would be, when I'm committed to something and it's going well, what does it feel like? When I'm committed to something and it's going well, what does it look like? And when I'm committed to something and it's going well, what does it sound like? And if you can answer those 3 questions and have a good sense of it, you now have your own mini barometer to go, okay, I'm feeling resistance, but I'm not exactly sure what it's around. So I'm going to check in, and is my feeling off? Is my experience off? Is what I'm saying off? Are my actions off? And then it's at least a start to open up a dialogue. So if you want a little bit of a laugh, or you want a little reminder of some wisdom, here goes. So this one comes from Miles Kelly, Aesop's Fables. There's 200 of them, favorite fables to share. There once was a crow who had been unable to find water for many days, not even a drop. He was half dead with thirst and barely had the energy to hop along the ground. Imagine his amazement and joy when he suddenly came upon a water pitcher. However, when the crow put its beak to the mouth of the pitcher, he found very little water was left. He could not reach that far in to get at it. He tried and tried, and at last gave up in despair. The crow knew that he had no energy to go further in search of water, and death is surely going to be near and find him. Suddenly, he thought, and he saw a pebble, and he put that pebble and dropped it in the pitcher. And then he took another pebble and dropped it in, and then another, and then another. At last, he saw the water rise up near him, and after casting in a few more pebbles, he was able to quench his thirst and save his life. And the moral of this particular Aesop's fable is, little by little does the trick. And so whether we're talking about iteration, whether we're talking about problem solving, both of those things came into play here, right? We have problem solving. I've got to get to something. I need to get to something. I'm driven to get towards something, but I just can't reach it the way things are. So what am I going to do? And am I going to stick with it and do what it takes? And then believing in what the path is. This crow decided to put pebbles inside this pitcher, and it took a while. He did not see results right away. Once the results started coming in and that water started rising, even though he couldn't reach it just yet, he recognized he was on the path. And there's a period of time where there's this unknown, and being okay and uncomfortable in that unknown is a pretty big deal. So let's tie that back to the definitions of commitment that we talked about. The promise to do something, a promise to be loyal, and the attitude that somebody has. So we say things like, oh, that person's a go-getter. They are a good solution finder. Everybody likes to be around this person. Those are attitude related. Then when we're in the middle of a project and we're trying to decide who needs to be on the team for the project to get it on time, on budget, maybe even a little ahead, and make sure that the whole project from budget to outputs, what the metrics are the ROIs are what we want, we might go to somebody who is really good at getting things done, removing obstacles, solving problems. And then we also will know people around us that once they decide to do something, they give it time. They give it time for the actions and the thoughts and the plans to turn into something. And so really, when we think about commitment, usually we're thinking about one aspect of commitment. So what if we changed our definition of commitment and incorporated all three? The promise to do something, to be loyal, and the attitude. If we did those things, we're looking at our interactions with people and maybe ourselves for setting the bar a certain height. You know, some people go set the bar low so you can reach it and build your skill and then raise it up. Some people go, I got a dream. I don't care how high the bar is. We're going to go for it. And either way is good. When we have more depth in the skills that we bring to each of those paths, we overcome some of our own obstacles that can get in our way. If we make a plan and we're going to stick to that plan, so we're going to be like the crow and we've decided this is what we're going to do, there's going to be a point where the water rises in the pitcher or not. And as long as we know what that point is, so we can see it and recognize we're on track and keep going, or get to this place and recognize we're not on track and need to change, even though we've given it time. We have data from the time that we've spent to incorporate and decide what direction is necessary to get back on track to get to the end goal. Without that middle step, without taking the pause to look where we came from, what data was there, how do we know where we're going? And if where we're going is where we really want to end? We don't. Now let's take the other one. The other one is we made this goal and we're just running for it. We have no idea what we need. We're not exactly sure what's going to happen. We just know that's where we're going. So every action we're taking is moving us toward that goal. Same thing. Every action we take that we believe moves us towards that goal, we can totally believe in. And each action is going to have a set of reactions, outcomes that we can look at as we're going along to, again, course correct along the way. So now we've kind of brought some planning into this commitment. How committed are we to a plan? And you know, that type of commitment could be, wow, we met this person and they are super energetic and they are incredibly passionate and they have success at completing projects like the one that I'm working on. And so I want them to work with me on the project that I've got going on. Okay? That energy can make a decision. And then what happens when we start working with somebody, whether we think we know them or we just met them? Bumps come up. There are going to be things they're not as good at. There are going to be things that you're super good at, or you have a very particular reason for doing what you want to do that this other person doesn't, and vice versa. So it opens up the need for communication so that the ideas can come together for that common end goal, the commitment to an outcome, the commitment to work together, the commitment to see it through, and the commitment to doing what it takes to get there. And part of that is problem solving, and crows are really smart. I will put in the program notes a couple of links to some great puzzle solving problems that crows do. And so I liked it because I know crows are super smart. Also, I liked it because of the problem solving piece. There was this leap of, there's something that's got to be done here. I've got to solve a problem. How am I going to do it? And can I stick with it long enough to see some sort of an outcome to decide to keep going or not? So that's a really big thing that I look for when I'm thinking about commitment, is incorporating all three of those definitions into one for myself and holding myself to that definition, as well as being able to experience a situation, see a situation, and hear a situation and the actions around it to determine when I'm thinking about commitment. And commitment, do I keep a project or do I drop a project? Do I hire this person or not? Have we done the most we can with an employee that's here and it's actually better for both of us that they move on? Whatever the situation we find ourselves in, there are other ones that are more day-to-day. I've got a client that doesn't pay a bill. What am I going to do about it? How can I stay committed to them when they're not reciprocating the value and paying for what's been delivered to them? Customer service. Okay, customers, we want to give the most amount of time possible to customers, yet we're not going to be able to help them from the very beginning. We need to have resources to get them to a certain point, and from that point, we will help them as much as possible. So how do you balance resources for calls in versus the online support versus live chat and anything, knowledge bases, and what do your customers actually really use? So what level of service commitment do you have, and is it clearly communicated? So both the first part and the second part come down to communication. And I've said that a few times so far. So let's think about that for a minute with communication. If I'm committed and I've got my own definition of commitment, and you come along and we decide to have coffee and this comes up in conversation, we could be having the same conversation and still talking to ourselves because of our definitions being different. So we need to find that common point, a place where we are able to have a connection of what commitment means to me and to you. And from there, we build on that. We're creating that common core and we're creating a shared meaning. So as we're coming together, my definition of commitment and your definition of commitment are compatible for the project, for the situation, for the group, whatever that we're working together on, that we're coming together for. So if you notice so far too, this could work at home, this can work at work, this can work at church, it can work at nonprofit organizations where you volunteer, with your kids, with your spouse, with your parents. It doesn't matter. It's all applicable there. So going into the third part, I'm going to insert another quote here. The only limit to your impact is your imagination and commitment. Tony Robbins said that. I'm going to read it again. The only limit to your impact is your imagination and commitment. And we've been talking about that so far. What possibly can happen? How am I going to filter that down? And even if it's a crazy idea, if I can see this crazy idea and I can see the end goal, and there's a place in the middle, maybe more than one, but definitely one place in the middle that I can go toward and check in and see how it's going, why not use imagination? We are easily put into boxes where we're given a process, we're told how things are. Remember the comments I was making at the beginning about, or somebody will say, that's not how we do it, right? That's another one. Why not? And the concept of imagination, at least to me, in the context of this conversation, is a little bit of questionability. Not to the point that it's intrusive, not to the point that it's disruptive, but to the point that we're challenging just a little, because it's in that challenge. What do we do this for? Here's an opportunity to change. Has it been tried? What was the outcome? Why wasn't it adopted then? All of that experience matters. And if we don't have that experience, but we know there's a story there, it's up to us to go find the story so we can figure out what is possible. And if it is the right thing, maybe it was executed wrong. If it is the right thing, maybe the wrong resources were available. If it is the right thing, maybe the wrong people came together or other priorities got put over the top of it and it didn't have a chance to come to fruition. And now we're going to get into business, and we're going to talk about something that I still hear today. I really heard it 20 years ago when I started. I heard it as a child from both my mother and my father. It is a way of doing business. It is a way of having a good attitude to under promise and over deliver. And I think there still is an application today, yet I also think that what it applies to is different. We can't just under promise and over deliver everything. We today are painting this picture of this experience. We're not just selling a product or a widget or a service. We're selling an experience. Why am I choosing you, Madam Salon, massage, hair person, over the one down the street? What makes this particular widget or this particular dry cleaning service or this particular plumber somebody that I always call, even though there are cheaper, better, faster ones over here? Why do I decide to stick with the same brand of phone, to stick with the same brands of shoes, to stick with the same brands of computers? And when it comes to our vendor relationships at work, what makes us stay with the vendors that we have? It always goes beyond the cost and the time to change. There's always a deeper reason. Now, sometimes it does come down to the cost of changing. We hate this, but we can't do this. And what comes after that is right now. We hate this and we can't do this forever. I can't do anything right now. Prioritized. No big deal. Prioritized. The pain's not big enough to make the change happen. Okay. When it's going okay, and maybe there's redundant services, or we're increasing whatever we're sending to this vendor, so we'd like a decrease in our price, right? So we're talking about economies of scale. We can't have those conversations if we don't have a good relationship with those people. If we don't have somebody in their organization and our organization that are talking to each other, that are staying in touch, that understand what's going on in each business, what the vendor challenges are, what the vendor challenges are, and us sharing some of what our challenges are. That's not giving up any competitive advantage. That's just being real and planting seeds for, hey, we're being squeezed in this, which is affecting this, and here's how it affects our relationship with you and how we're looking at our relationship with you. It's not a bad thing to do. That's just being open and honest and allowing our vendors to understand our situation and continue to serve us the best way they can. If we're really closed about it, how can we give anybody the opportunity to step up and meet us, to be committed to giving us the best thing that we could be committed to? We can't. And so our commitment and our imagination play a big part. And there are also a lot of excuses that come up here. Ugh, well, happens, and it always does. Or maybe we want to be noticed for the wrong reasons. So we're committed to this one thing, but it's not actually part of who we are. Maybe we really want to see this project done, but nobody else in the organization understands it yet. And so we're getting resistance and nobody's making it a priority, even though it is the priority. We can lead a horse to water. We can't make him drink. So if that's actually happening right now in your organization, we got to go back to the beginning. What's the definition of commitment? How do I see it? And how does it play out in our organization? And how do I get people to show up and build upon that so that we have a common place to move forward from? We've also touched on a few other skills that are part of commitment that make up what it is to be committed to something or have commitment from somebody else. Things like loyalty, courtesy, manners, respect, communication, approachability, maybe even coachability, in the sense that we're willing, because we care, to give feedback. We also are willing and care to receive feedback. So, having a common definition, a shared meaning of commitment doesn't really happen overnight. In fact, not really. It just doesn't. The thing is, like a lot of good things, get ruined with one action, one statement, one misstep. The same is true for commitment. We can get off track. So bringing together the skills, communication, loyalty, common courtesy, respect, listening, researching, and probably even a few more, understanding what those are and how they show up and how commitment is done in your organization will give a full sense of what it means to have commitment within the way everybody comes together in your organization. Your actions speak louder than your words. What you do tells other people about how you define commitment. People will follow your actions more than your words. When they line up, it's a stronger reinforcement. And the variable is that every single person coming together to be committed to delivering a product, committed to serving a customer, committed to solving the problem that our customers have, will have different definitions to different people and may be demonstrated differently in different areas of the business. How you, as a leader today, approaches it, defines it, and models it is going to directly impact the level of commitment that you have. This is Program 4, The Impact of Commitment. Program notes will be on thevoiceofboldbusiness.com. And I want to know what you think about commitment. I want to know what you think about the crow in the picture. I want to know how you define it. I want to know how it shows up in your organization. So on the show notes page, add to this conversation. Tell me, what did you think about this program? Tell me your sentiments, your experiences, problems that you're having. And until next time, remember, the impact of commitment directly relates to your definition of it.
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.